It's one of the most painful experiences that you can have on your dating journey. You meet someone, you think that everything is going great, the two of you have a lot in common, you can envision a future together, and then he just disappears out of nowhere. And you are left wondering what happened. Was it something that I said? Was it something that I did? Did I text too often? Did I not text enough? And if you've ever been in this situation where you've been ghosted, I want you to know it is not your fault. It says a lot more about him than it does you. And we're going to talk about how you bounce back from ghosting. So, hi, welcome. My name is Keisha Rice. I am a dating coach. I'm also a hypnotherapist. I help women learn how to heal from their unhealthy relationship patterns and learn how to attract healthy and loving relationships. So, we're going to talk about ghosting today. And I first want to acknowledge, I always tell my clients that the end of any relationship is a death, even if it didn't last very long. And because the end of a relationship is a death, you are allowed to mourn that. You are allowed to take the time to acknowledge that you are sad that things didn't work out the way that you wanted them to. You are allowed to take that time to grieve and to process. It hurts to invest time and energy into getting to know someone and to learning about them and to putting your heart out there, maybe being a little bit vulnerable, and then that person disregards it by ghosting you. It hurts to start to establish communication with someone and start to have that rapport, and then all of a sudden there's just silence. Like you can acknowledge the fact that that is painful. And you can also acknowledge that sometimes that leads to feelings of shame, of self-doubt, of making you question whether or not you should be dating at all, right? And if you are feeling that way, I want you to know that his silence is not a reflection of anything that you've done. So there are all sorts of reasons why a man could go ghost on you, right? Um, Sometimes he just wasn't serious to begin with, and that sucks, but you know, that is what it is. If that happens, again, it's not a matter of you. He was not in a space to be in a relationship. Sometimes he realized that your value was too high for him. I can actually think of an example of that with my older brother. So I have a brother who's 10 years older than me. And when I was younger, he was a teenager. I remember that he had largely stopped going to church. And, my I'm a preacher's kid, so my parents were very involved in church. I was at church every Sunday, and there was this girl, young woman at our church who I just loved so much. I looked up to her. I wanted to be her when I was her age. And one day my brother ends up visiting church, and the next thing you know, like they're talking a little bit, they're dating, and I'm so happy because I'm like, she's gonna be part of our family. She'll be my big sister, all of this stuff. And my brother ends up ghosting her. He ends up just like deciding that he's not going to talk to her again. I remember seeing her and how upset she was by this. And I also, because I was a quiet child and I had a tendency to sneak around and listen into other people's conversations, I remember hearing my brother on the phone with one of his friends and saying that he really liked that girl, but she had all these dreams and ambitions and she was going all these places that he wasn't. And he was like, yeah, I'm not going to be any good for her, and I'm not going to be able to live up to all the things that she's doing. So, it's just better for me to leave. And yes, there are much better ways of handling that. In my brother's case, give him a little grace because he was a teenager at the time. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes someone sees more of your value than you see your own value, and that is what compels them to leave, right? Um, Sometimes a person ghosts you because he wanted the ego boost of being with you because of the person that you are, but he didn't want the responsibility of maintaining that relationship. So, in all of these cases, though, it is a matter of him lacking the communication skills to express that to you. Again, not a matter of your worth. So, when a man disappears, the reason why it's so difficult is because our brains always want closure. Our brains always want to close the loop. And because our brains want to close that loop, we have this tendency to try to fill in the story of why it is that he left. And oftentimes, we will go to the worst case scenario of why this person left. Again, we don't go to, well, he just saw how amazing I was and he couldn't handle that. We don't go to the fact that oftentimes rejection is God's protection and that him ghosting was God's way of saving us from something. We go to the worst case scenario. And ghosting in the end, back to this whole idea of rejection being protection, all that's happening is the wrong option is being moved away from you so that there's space for the right option. So when this happens to you, I want you to just take a second before you get upset. Pause, right? And instead of reacting, just give yourself a moment to process and don't chase. Don't send a million text messages. Don't demand closure. Don't demand explanations. Because if you're doing that, you are giving your power away. You should never put yourself in the position of begging for someone who clearly does not want to be with you. And then after you pause, allow yourself to get grounded. So you want to journal. This is a great time to pray. Call a friend of yours. If you are getting any type of mentorship, coaching, counseling, you're going to therapy, then, talk through this with your coach or with your therapist. But this is a time for you to remind yourself of who you are outside of this one particular dating experience. And to remind yourself that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you are a catch, and remind yourself of all the reasons why you're a catch, and that none of those are negated by this one experience. And then rewrite the story. So instead of telling yourself that you weren't enough, tell yourself that he wasn't capable of giving you the things that you deserve. Because that's true, right? He clearly is not capable of communicating well. So you already know that's one way in which he wasn't capable of giving you what you deserve. And then get back into alignment with what it is that you want in life. So fill your time with things that bring you purpose, that calm your nervous system, that make you happy. And don't let one person's immaturity end your momentum in life and the things that you are moving forward on, right? This is also a good time for you to reassess your boundaries. Oftentimes, the reason why ghosting hurts so much is because you gave someone too much access to you. You gave them too much of your time, too much of your attention. Maybe it was too much of your body as far as how physical you got in this relationship. And this is a good reminder that you have to pace yourself in a relationship. When you are getting to know someone, you have to allow them to earn access to you. I have talked in previous videos about how you are a solar system, right? You are the sun, And there are people in your life who deserve a lot of access to you. They deserve to be Mercury, right? Because they have always been there for you. You know that you can trust them. They are dependable. They truly love you and care about you, and they show that both in their words and their actions. And then there are people in your life who are Pluto, right? I'm not saying that they are kicked out of your life completely, but there's very little that you tell them. There's very little that you trust them with, and you don't really spend a lot of time with them either. So when you meet people, when you form new relationships, everybody should start at Pluto, right? And everyone should have to earn the right to become a closer inner planet based on their ability to spend time with you, invest energy in you, and show and prove that they can be trustworthy. So take this as a lesson learned and remind yourself that this is just a setup for you to have better moving forward. And also a good time, again, for you to adjust the boundaries that you need to understand the pacing better so that you can do a better job in the next situation, in the next relationship. I just want you to have this mindset shift that a ghosting experience is not a setback. It is a filter. It is proof that this person was not capable of giving you what you need, what you desire, what you deserve. And it saved you time from having to learn that later on in the relationship when you would have invested more of your time and your energy, right? So the right man is not going to disappear when things get difficult. The right man is not going to disappear because he has a difficult time communicating. And you don't have to chase after the right man. You are going to attract that person. You are going to attract your purpose partner. So if you've dealt with this, if you've dealt with ghosting, if you've dealt with just in general relationships being kind of a roller coaster, then I want to help you get on a steadier, happier, and more fulfilling path towards finding that purpose partner. I would love for you to join me in my private coaching program. It's called From Toxic to Thriving. And it is a program where I help Christian women, again, heal from their wounds and to attract someone who is going to communicate, who's going to love them, who's going to cherish them, and who is going to stand firm in helping you live in alignment and fulfill your purpose. So you can learn more about that through the link in the description. And we can get you to a point where you're never questioning your worth and you're not concerned about who leaves or stays because you know that the person who stays, they're the ones who are meant for you, and those who leave, again, are just protection. So remember that ghosting is never about whether or not you're worthy. It's simply proof that this particular person wasn't ready. And you were still worthy, you were still a prize, and you still deserve true, lasting, committed love. So tell me in the comments. Tell me about experience where you were ghosted and tell me about what you did to bounce back from it and what that taught you and how that helped you move forward towards having a better life. In the meantime, stay blessed and I will talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.